using my headphones in hopes that the microphone will work better. So this was Second Kings. So much going on. I didn't even take account as to how many kings took over and reigned, how many were not satisfied by God, or God wasn't satisfied with them. So let me see if I could recall or at least summarize this a bit. So Elijah, I realized that I had already read the first two chapters of Second Kings, 2 or 3 chapters, when I was doing the summary for First Kings. So I spoke out of pocket. I was talking about Elijah being taken to heaven, but that was actually in the chapter 2. So again, Elijah. Oh, it could be the AC turning on, the heater turning on, muffling the sound. I don't know. Hopefully, I could be heard. Elijah. Going through this whole walk, and he tells Elisha, stay here, for the Lord has told me to go to Jericho. And Elisha says, as surely as the Lord lives and you yourself live, I will never leave you. So, and he did that a couple times. And then the 50 prophets were waiting for them, and then suddenly the chariot of fire appeared, drawn by horses of fire, which could be the UFO. It drove between, and specifically mentions a whirlwind into heaven. A whirlwind. Beat me up, Scotty. Elijah's clothes, he struck it to the water. The water split for a third time. And then, the prophets say, hey, do you want me to send some people to find his body? He's like, no, because he's seen him go, and they send them, and they come back. He's like, I have a problem. He's like, no, I told you not to send them. Elijah, so and I mentioned this in the last one, when Elijah was walking off before, he said, is there anything I could do before I go? And he said, yes, if you can leave me your spirit, double your spirit. And he's like, I tell you what, that's a big ask, but I tell you what, if you watch me leave, you have asked a difficult thing. If you see me when I am taken from you, then you will get your request. But if not, then you won't. And surely he did. And to reinforce that, you see right after he gets his first miracle, one of the leaders of Jericho visited him. He said, hey, we got a problem. The water is bad here in the land, and it's unproductive. And he's like, he prays. He says, give me a bowl, give me some saw. And the Lord says, I have purified this water. It will no longer cause death or infertility. And the water remained pure. Elijah, I feel it was a little excessive. I feel that he used his power, but God didn't seem to be mad. Then again, we know the God of this side of the railroads was a little different. But it shows that Elijah left Jericho, went up to Bethel, and while he was walking, there was a group of boys, apparently a large group. They didn't say that there, but afterwards you could tell. It's like, hey, go away, Baldy. They were mocking and making fun of him. And Elijah turned around and looked at them, and he cursed them in the name of the Lord. Then two bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of them. Mauled. Two bears mauled. From there, Elijah went to Mount. I mean, it was a little too much for me. So a war between Moab and Israel. And then this one, I was just picturing like, okay, in order for me to do this, I need a harp. I need somebody that plays the harp. Elijah replied, as surely as the Lord Almighty lives, from who I serve, I wouldn't even bother you except for my respect for King Jehoshaphat of Judah. Now bring me someone who can play the harp. While the harp was being played, the power of the Lord came upon Elijah. Elijah died, or did not. He went to heaven. And this is Elisha, but I gotta say Elijah. You know that Elijah is gone. This is the next one. This is his processor. This dry valley will be filled with pools of water. You will see neither wind nor rain, says the Lord, but this will fill with water. So it's talking about, even though this famine, he's telling him what's happening. So, wow, I feel like I read this so long ago. And then the Moabites saw the water, and that appeared, and it was reflecting from the sun, I believe, and it looked like the sun shining across the water, making it look like blood. So the Moabites were like, "Oh, it's blood," and they said the three armies must have attacked and killed each other. Let's go, man, to Moab and collect the plunder. So it kind of confused these people, and they arrived, and here's Israel with all their armies, and they destroyed the town, covered their good land with stones, stopped all the springs, and cut down all the good trees. Finally, only the king of Moab saw that he was losing the battle. And the king of Moab took his oldest son and sacrificed him as a burnt offering on the wall. That was crazy. Yeah, there's this the way they sacrifice people and kids at that time was crazy. There was one that about eating the kids. They were cannibals. I don't remember cannibals here, but this lady ate a kid. I don't remember that in Bible school. I was probably whispering. Elijah helps a poor woman. The poor woman is like, listen, my husband who served for you is dead, and now the creditors are come. They're trying to take my kids for slaves. And Elijah says, borrow as many empty jars as possible, and take then take this one jar and fill it up with olive oil. She did. And the next one with the same jar, and the next one with the same jar, and the next one. And then it was like, oh, she told her son, bring me more. He's like, no, that's all we got. And then Elijah said, there aren't any more. God said this is what was going to happen. Now sell the olive oil and pay your debts. And you and your sons can live on whatever's left. So apparently olive oil is pretty expensive. Like they had a lot of jars, man. And then there was the woman that was older, didn't have no kids, and he's like, next year at this time, the child will be in your arms. She's like, don't make fun of me, don't mock me, don't tease me. And sure enough, this happened. And then one thing or another happened, and the kid died. And this was a lady that was really good to Elijah. Like she saw that he was a prophet in town, and she made a room for him. Um, and whenever he came into town, he stood there. So her son dies, and she takes her son, carries her son, and puts him on Elijah's bed. And then she goes, makes a journey to Elijah, tells him that his kid is dead, and he's like, "Well, go over there." He sent his one of his guys go over there, see what he's doing, and sure enough, he comes back. He's like, "Yeah, he's dead." So the woman's like, "I'm not coming back without you. You coming with me in the journey." So he goes, and he gets there, and surely the kid is dead, and he's like, let me go in there by myself." And this, I believe, is the same thing that Elijah did with the body that he resuscitated, and so he laid on the child, hands to hand, mouth to mouth, and the child woke up. And then he lay down on the child's body, placing his mouth on the child's mouth, his eyes on the child's eyes, his hands on the child's hand. And as he stretched out on him, the child began to grow warm again. Um, and then he sneezed 7 times. I'm always highlighting these sevens because they're all over. Um, and then reminds me of Jesus, where he feeds a bunch of people with what seems to be um, some grain and 20 loaves of bread, and his servant is like, "Feed 100 people with only this?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, man, there'll be some left over too." And surely it was. That reminds me of another story, huh? Even though this was first, the other story is way back over here. Um, and my God, truck downstairs, 4 floors down, some loud country music. Then, and my God, why is this man asking me to heal someone with leprosy? Go wash yourself 7 times and be healed from your leprosy. And he's like, "Man, we got some of the best waters, and this one, this one, this one. You telling me to go to Jordan and that one? Hey, this is what the man of God said. Go do it." He went and did it. Guess what? He came out here, and his skin became as healthy as the skin of a young child. I know that there is no God except in all the world except in Israel. Elijah would not accept any gifts. The greed of Gehazi, you know. So when this was Naaman. Naaman is the one that asked for the to be healed from leprosy, and he offered him gifts, and Elijah said none. So then Gehazi, which was a servant of Elijah, ran after the guy. He's like, "Hey, my master should have let not let you get away without giving them gifts, and he will take the gift." And he's like, "Oh, by all means, take twice as much." Then he went and hid the gifts in his house, and then he comes back and he's like, "Where you been?" Like, "I haven't been anywhere." You don't realize that I could see you in spirit. I could see you. I could see what you did. Because you've done this, you and your descendants will suffer from leprosy forever. The same one. And when Gehazi left the room, guess what? He was covered in leprosy. There was the floating axe head. When they went to do some work in Jordan, Um, One of the guys was apparently working the axe. The head of the axe flew in the water. And they're like, oh man, this is a borrowed axe. I believe that there's a story about that. It's a borrowed axe. And Elijah said, give me a stick, you know, without one. Threw it in the water. And the axe head on the stick floated up. Elijah traps. Dothan. I don't know. I just put Dothan because I lived in Dothan, Alabama for a little bit. And there's a place called Dothan where Elijah was. Hillside was filled. Oh, and one, they come to get him, and his servants are like, oh my God, what do we do? Should we hide? I mean, we got all these chariots out here. He's like, oh, my son, we got so much more. And he's like, Lord, open his eyes. And he looks over the hill, and the hillside around Elijah was filled with horses and chariots of fire. God's army was coming. And the famine was so bad. This was really choice words. I If there's any overthinking or reading too much into, this is one of those things. The siege lasted so long in this great famine that a donkey's head sold for 80 pieces of silver, and a cup of dove's dung sold for 5 pieces of silver. I mean, what are they doing with it? It's expensive, but and then this is the lady. Lady came over here, and like, I need help. And like, what? I can't help you. What's the matter? This woman said to me, come on, let's eat your son today. Then we will eat my son tomorrow. So we cooked my son and ate him. Then the next day I said to her, kill your son so we can eat him. But she has hidden her son. So nothing happens about that story. That's just an awful story that will not let you go to sleep very well. So there's all kinds plunder, there's outcasts, there's wars, there's murders, there is 7 years again, there is, okay, so this one is when Jehu gets anointed king, and they do it in Elijah tells his guy, you gotta go and do it. You gotta anoint. You gotta ask for him in private. You gotta anoint him. You gotta run out of there. And he's like, hey man, you're gonna. God says you're gonna be king. So I'm anointing you with this olive oil, and he's gonna, kill your master's family, all of them, and this, that, the other, and he goes back in there, and he's like, what did that madman tell you? He's like, madman, they ain't not saying nothing. No, you hiding something. What do you say? He said, I was going to be king. And they go outside. They're like, oh, Jehu, he's king. Jehu is king. So Jehu kills Jorah, Sania. Jehu replied, how can there be peace as long... Oh, this is to Jezebel. Oh, no, this is to King Joram. He goes over there, and King Joram sends a couple, or King Ahaziah. One of these kings, Joram, sends his messenger. He's like, go find out if he's coming in peace. And he goes like, hey sir, do you come in peace? He's like, in peace? No, are you with me? Join me. And then the watchman is like, hey man, he met him, but he ain't coming back. He sends another one. Same thing. And then the king goes over there. He's like, do you come in peace, Jehu? And Jehu replied, how can I come in peace as long as the idolatry and witchcraft of your mother Jezebel all over here? Now I know Jezebel. I mean, even though I've read about her, I haven't mentioned her, but yeah, now I know when they say that Jezebel. So Jezebel comes and he sees. I mean, he kills him. Jezebel sees the commotion. She comes out to the window and she puts on them eye color makeup. He paints her eyelids and fix her hair and sat in the window and have you come in peace, you murderer? You're just like Zimri who murdered his master. Jehu looked at her, looked at the other people. Who's on my side? Throw her down. They threw her down out the window. Blood splattered against the wall and on the horses. And Jehu trampled her body under the horses' hoofs. And Jehu kills Ahab's family. He comes out. They only see Jezebel's, I think, hands, feet, and head or something. It's like, oh, you know what? That's what the prophecy was, that the dogs were gonna eat her. Weird. Just a lot of killing, a lot of, Jehu kills the priest of Baal. Baal was one of those gods of Israel or demigod, pagan stuff. They drag out the sacred pillars and worship. They smash sacred pillars and temples of Baal. Destroys every entrance of Baal, every trace of Baal worship from Israel. He did not, however, destroy the golden calf. So, he did not obey the law. And God of Israel, with all his heart, he did not follow him with all his heart. So then he dies. And then Jehosheba, who was it's all by the royal family. She began, Atalia, that's Queen Atalia. She ruled for a while in Judah. And then her sister, Josiah, was it? Josh, for 6 years in the temple, because he would be the next king. But Atalia was killing all the family, so she could rule. And then the priest, ordered these three sets of people that were working the Sabbath and preparing everything. And then when the kid was 7 years old, Josh, he brought him out, placed the crown on his head, presented him a copy of the law. And then, she was killed, Atalia. So that Jehoiada, that priest, he reformed a lot of the religion, and he kind of led, but it was Joash that it was king, but he was only 7 years old. And then Joash repairs the temple. He was giving the people the money, the priest the money, and at one point he's like, hey man, how come you ain't fixed the temple? So he's like, yo, from now on we're gonna put this offering box over here. It's gonna be for the carpenters, for the foreman, the construction supervisor, and we're gonna fix it. So he does that. But eventually, his officers plot against him. They kill him. And then another Jehoahaz, son of Jehu, the other guy, becomes the ruler. And he rules for 13 years. There's so many rulers, so many kings. Then Elijah's final prophecy, he's about to die. And the king is saying, I see the chariots coming, how am I gonna win there? He's like, oh, here's your bow, hold it with this, hold the arrow with this, hit the ground, strike the ground. And so he struck it 3 times, and Elijah was mad, and he was like, you should have struck it 5 or 6 times. Then you would have beaten Aram until the entire army was destroyed. Now you only be victorious 3 times. And then he died. And there was just a mention as to, I guess, the power of Elijah even after Elisha. After he was dead, the Moabite, oh, this is a long one, 26 minutes. Moabite tomb raiders were around, and they were burying a man in Elijah's tomb, and they dropped him in there. And but as soon as the body touched Elijah's bones, the dead man revived, jumped to his feet. Scary. And then, sure enough, he beat the army 3 times. And then, with all these new rulers, these new kings, there is the same line. Well, this one says, oh yeah, same line. Then that person did what was pleasing. Oh, this one did what was pleasing, but Amaziah did not destroy the pagan shrines. This one does not destroy the pagan signs. And this is 3, 4, 5 rulers. I mean, ruler after ruler. Again, I believe that all these people that, the prophecy of David, if they even remember, because a lot of these people don't even know the law of Moses at this point. I have done wrong. I will pay you whatever money. I will gather. Oh yeah, I put this one down because they were stripping the temple, even of the gold from the doors on the doorpost from the temple. There was this long thread, and then this is the first time that I see the name of Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah. Isaiah, son of Amos. Perhaps your Lord has heard that of chief of staff sent to the king to defy God. Isaiah replied back, say to your master, this is what the Lord said to him. Oh, because this other guy was threatening the king, saying, I was sent by God, and all this. And God, through Isaiah, says, do not be disturbed by the blasphemous speech against me from the Assyrian king's messenger, which was the other one. Listen, I myself will move against him, and the king will receive a message, from home. He will return to his home, where I will have him killed by the sword. So there's a huge prediction in a format almost of a story / poem, where Isaiah predicts Judah's deliverance. The virgin daughter of Zion despises the lassie, the daughter of Jerusalem shakes her head in decision. With the sole of my foot, I stopped all the rivers in Egypt. And that night, the angel of the Lord went out and Assyrian camp and killed 185,000. He's all or nothing, dude. He doesn't mess around. So, um, the king gets sick. Envoys for Babylon. Babylon is all through here too. This new ruler, Amon, rules in Judah, and then Josiah. Josiah was 8 years old when he became a king, and then Hilkiah, who was Josiah's priest, he found the book of law in the temple. I don't know if it was lost. I don't know if it was buried. I don't know if it was in the Ark of the Covenant, because that's where it was supposed to be with the originally, where I read a long time ago with the Ten Commandment tablet. But I assume it was on top for anybody to read, but apparently not, or I don't know. It doesn't say specific, but so the high priest, gave it to Shaphan. Shaphan read it to the king, and when Josiah read it, he tore his clothes up. He was like, "Oh my God, our ancestors have not obeyed the word in this scroll. We have been doing everything it said. We have not been doing everything it says." And although God was, had pretty much promised to destroy everything, he was like, you were sorry and humbled yourself before the Lord, and you tore your clothing. So I won't destroy Judah until you die. So Josiah did a whole religious reform. He did away with idolatrous priests. They also had offered the sacrifices, did away. He also defiled the pagan shrines, finally, where they had offered. That's where it was continuing. Josiah tore down the altars for the other gods. The shrines, more shrines, God of Moabites, sacred pillars. The king tore down the altar of Bethel, the pagan shrines. Then Josiah turned around and noticed several tombs in the hillside, and they're like, what is that? Let me bury the bones or burn the bones. And the people of the time is like, yeah, that's the tomb of the man of God who came from Judah and predicted the very thing that you have done, the author, And he's like, ooh, let him be. And Josiah demolished all the buildings with the pagan shrines. He executed the priest of the pagan shrines. And then, because now he knows the law and he celebrates the law, he celebrated Passover. He's bringing it back after hundreds of years here, it seems. But then King Necho killed him. Kind of happens. And then Jehoahaz was the new ruler, which was the son of Josiah. Actually, Jehoahaz was then the Pharaoh locked him up and made him demand all kinds of money. We'll come back to that one at the end. I just realized. And the Pharaoh appointed Eliakim, which was another Josiah's son, to reign for his father. He taxed them and whatnot, so he was willing to do it, so he let him reign. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight, just as his ancestors done, and that became an ongoing thing again. That one did evil. That one done evil. Then they put his uncle, the king of Babylon put his uncle next as king, and he did what was evil in the Lord's eyes. Then, oh, this one was awful. I mean, the king of Babylon went there to Jerusalem. He was tearing up everything he made. Zedekiah, watch as they slaughter his sons. That's, oh, I can't even. They destroyed the temple. I mean, to shreds. Down. They destroyed the walls of Jerusalem. I mean, that's just 35 minutes. I think Genesis is the longest one, and I think that this one took longer. And then Jehoram was released. I believe the king of Babylon at that time, had mercy after 37 year 37 years of exile, and he let him eat with him, and it reminded me a little bit about like Joseph, but he didn't become governor or anything that I know of. That's 502 pages. That is 12 books. The first 12 books, I believe, and now I'm going to First Chronicles. So that was a lot of different rulers, a lot of different kings. The story of Elijah, the story of Elisha, the story of Josiah. There was a lot there, a lot going on. Very cool. A lot of good stuff, We're still looking for the King of Kings, the dynasty of David. Out of that huge royal family, none of them was it, But I like that they kept such a good record, and cause and effect. There's a lot to love. It's hard not to judge some of those things. Those things were pretty harsh, but we could definitely learn a lot from the cause and effect by a lot of these rulers with a ridiculous amount of power.